The alley behind Rosario's Italian kitchen had become my usual spot. Not because their leftovers were better than anyone else's, but because they tossed their bread right at 9:30 every morning, still warm sometimes, wrapped in plastic. I was 44 years old, a licensed veterinarian who'd spent over 16 years healing animals, and now I was surviving on restaurant garbage schedules. That morning in October carried a frost that bit through the layers of my sleeping bag, and my stomach felt like it was folding in on itself. The old coat I'd scavenged behind a Goodwill bin 2 weeks earlier wasn't cutting it anymore. Winter was closing in, and for people like me, that was the season that decided who lived to see spring. I'd just pulled a half-eaten slice of lasagna from a takeout box when I heard footsteps on the wet pavement. Not the careless shuffle of another homeless man, or the heavy stomp of a cop about to move me along. These sounded clean, deliberate. Expensive shoes. Michael Turner? The voice was steady, professional. I turned, still holding the lasagna. The man in front of me looked like he belonged on a magazine cover about wealth. Navy suit, silver tie, shoes that reflected streetlights like mirrors. His hair was perfectly combed, despite the wind whipping down the alley. Who's asking? My voice cracked more than I meant it to. Months of street life change you, they roughen not just your hands but your words, your posture, your trust. My name is Harold Blackstone. I'm an estate attorney from New York. He reached into his coat pocket slowly. My instinct tensed. I'd learned never to trust sudden moves, but instead of pulling a weapon, he revealed a photograph. Is this you, Dr. Michael Turner? Taken in 2018. I froze. The picture showed me standing in front of my old veterinary clinic, Turner Animal Care, Cedar Falls, Ohio. I was smiling in my white coat like I'd conquered life. Back then, I had a wife I believed loved me, a daughter who still called me Dad without hesitation, and a career that gave me purpose. How did you get that? Your great-uncle, Rudolph Hartman, passed away last month in Manhattan, Blackstone said evenly. You've been named in his will. I laughed, but it came out harsh and broken. You've got to be kidding. Uncle Rudy? The man who sent me $5 bills until I turned 18, then vanished? I haven't heard his name in decades. Mr. Hartman was a private man, Blackstone continued. But he kept detailed records on his family. He knew about your practice, your divorce from Veronica, and your current situation. I looked down at my filthy jeans and duct-taped shoes. So, he knew I'd been homeless for 3 months? Yes, Harold said quietly. And he still left you his estate. The lasagna dropped from my hands and splattered on the concrete. His what? His entire estate, he repeated. His Manhattan penthouse. His yacht moored in the Hamptons. His art, investments, and properties. The total valuation, approximately $47 million. My legs gave out for a second. I leaned against the dumpster to stay upright. No, this has to be some kind of scam. Without a word, Blackstone opened his briefcase. Inside were official documents embossed with seals. The law firm of Blackstone, Whitmore and Associates has managed the Hartman estate for 3 decades. Here's my card, my bar certification, and Mr. Hartman's death certificate. The paper felt too real to be fake. The seal, the signatures, they all screamed legitimacy. Just 6 months ago, Veronica, my ex-wife, had stood outside the courthouse laughing as she drove off in her new boyfriend's BMW. No woman will ever love a broke man like you, she'd said. You're going to die alone, Mike. And now, a man in a $3,000 suit was telling me I was worth millions. There must be a mistake, I muttered. Uncle Rudy had successful relatives. My cousin Damon's an investment banker. Trevor's a surgeon in Seattle. Why would he choose me? There is one condition, Blackstone replied, his expression unreadable. And it can't be discussed here. You'll need to travel to New York and view a video Mr. Hartman recorded before his death. Only then will the inheritance terms be revealed. And if I say no? Then the entire estate transfers to an alternate beneficiary in 72 hours. Who? He paused. Your ex-wife. Veronica Turner. The world tilted. For a moment, all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. Mr. Turner, Blackstone said softly, checking his watch, a Rolex, naturally. I have a car waiting. We can be in New York by noon. You'll have food, a shower, clothes. Even if you decide not to accept the inheritance, at least give yourself that. I stared at the dumpster. My home. My kitchen. My everything for the last 3 months. And somewhere in Manhattan, there was a penthouse with my name on it, and a dead uncle's mystery waiting to be solved. Give me 5 minutes, I said. I need to tell someone I'm leaving. I found Jeremiah, the Vietnam vet who'd taught me how to survive the streets, where to find safe shelters, which churches didn't steal your shoes, and which alleys were quiet zones. When I told him what happened, he squinted skeptically. You been drinking that mouthwash again? I showed him the card. Heavy paper. Embossed ink. He stared at it for a long time before sighing. Maybe it's your door finally opening, brother. You've been knocking a long time. He dug into his cart and handed me an old watch wrapped in plastic. Found this last week. You'll need it. Rich folks care about time. That broke something in me. Jeremiah, I'll come back for you. I swear it. Don't make promises you can't keep, Mike. Just remember we're human, too. When I returned, the lawyer was still standing by the dumpster, polished, composed, and out of place. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a cruel trick. Maybe my life was about to change. The black Lincoln Town car idled quietly at the end of the alley, its engine purring like it was too refined for this part of the city. When I climbed inside, the leather seats felt foreign against my back, soft, warm, almost forgiving. Harold Blackstone sat across from me, tapping something on a sleek tablet. The world outside the tinted window faded as we pulled away from the streets that had defined my existence for the last 3 months. Mr. Turner, he said after a while, I've arranged a private flight from Cedar Falls Regional Airport to New York. We should arrive before noon. Private flight? I repeated, disbelief twisting every word. You mean, like, one of those planes rich people use? He smiled faintly. Exactly like that. We drove in silence for most of the hour. My reflection in the window was unrecognizable, beard overgrown, cheeks hollow, eyes that hadn't seen rest in weeks. I tried not to think about how Jeremiah would spend tonight in that same alley, alone. When we reached the airport, I almost turned back. The private terminal gleamed under the morning sun, all glass and marble. Men in uniforms greeted us like we belonged there. Blackstone led me into a lounge that smelled faintly of cedar and espresso. There's a shower through that door, he said. Clothes are waiting for you. We estimated your size from your driver's license records. I hesitated. You people really do your research. Mr. Hartman was meticulous, he replied. The hot water hit my skin, and for the first time in months, I felt alive. I stayed under that stream until my skin turned red, watching 3 months of grime swirl down the drain. The mirror reflected a ghost becoming human again. When I stepped out wearing the new clothes, dark jeans, a clean shirt, and a blazer that fit almost perfectly, I almost didn't recognize myself. Better, Harold said approvingly. Mr. Hartman would have wanted you to be comfortable. The jet itself was quiet luxury. Leather seats, polished wood, and a faint hum that made the world outside feel far away. As we lifted off, the sight of Ohio shrinking beneath us made something inside me tighten, a mix of fear, disbelief, and something dangerously close to hope. Harold handed me a folder. Background on the estate, he explained. I flipped through the documents, barely processing the numbers: a Manhattan penthouse valued at $12 million, a yacht in the Hamptons worth $3 million, and an investment portfolio I couldn't even begin to understand. 47 million, I muttered. I don't think I've even seen 47,000 in one place. Harold smiled, but his eyes remained serious. Mr. Hartman didn't choose you for your wealth, Mr. Turner. He chose you for your character. Character? I'd been sleeping behind dumpsters. Perhaps that's exactly why, he said quietly. The jet climbed through a layer of clouds, and the sunlight filled the cabin. I stared at my reflection in the window again, clean, but still broken. Tell me about my uncle, I said. The real man, not the version in those papers. Harold folded his hands. Rudolph Hartman was a genius and a recluse. He built his fortune authenticating rare books and art, but his real obsession was people. He studied them. Observed them. He believed character was revealed only through suffering. Sounds like a charming guy, I said dryly. He was complicated, Harold replied. Brilliant, but lonely. He never married. No children. He once told me he was waiting for someone in his family to prove they understood what loss really meant. I stared at the clouds outside. Well, I guess I qualified. Harold gave a small, knowing nod. You more than qualify. As New York came into view, its skyline piercing the afternoon haze, I felt the weight of the moment pressing down. Somewhere below, a city of millions lived their stories, unaware that one broken man was about to learn his fate. The car waiting at Teterboro Airport whisked us straight to the Upper East Side. When the elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, I nearly forgot how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Central Park like a living painting. The furniture was minimalist but rich, the kind that didn't need to shout its worth. Mr. Hartman's study is this way, Harold said, guiding me down a hallway lined with oil paintings. Each looked like it belonged in a museum. He stopped at a heavy mahogany door. This is the final step. Once you're seated, the video will play. It will explain everything, including the condition. You've seen it? I asked. He shook his head. Only the instructions. He wanted the message to reach you first, unfiltered. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the city below. A massive desk faced a wall-mounted screen. I sat in the leather chair that had probably been occupied by people of real importance. My heart pounded. You ready? Harold asked. I nodded. He pressed a button, and the screen flickered to life. There he was, Uncle Rudy, older than I remembered, thinner, but those sharp blue eyes still carried command. Hello, Michael, he began. His voice was calm but powerful, every word deliberate. If you're watching this, it means Harold has found you, and that my timing was correct. I swallowed. I've watched your life from a distance, he continued. I know about the clinic, your marriage, your fall. You lost nearly everything, but not your humanity. That is why you are my heir. He leaned closer to the camera. But there is one condition. Within 5 years, you must help at least 100 people escape homelessness. Real, verifiable help. Housing, employment, treatment, whatever it takes. You'll have full access to my fortune to do it. But if you fail? He paused. Then every cent goes to your ex-wife, Veronica Turner. My breath caught. Why? I whispered aloud. As if he heard me, Rudy continued. Because this is not about money. It's about redemption. You see, I was once like you, Michael. In 1968, after returning from Korea, I lived on the streets of New York, broken, invisible. Until one man changed everything. A bookseller named Morrison gave me food, a bed, and purpose. I built my empire on that second chance. His eyes softened. Now it's your turn. The video faded to black, leaving the sound of my heartbeat echoing in the silence. When Harold re-entered, I was still frozen. Mr. Turner? He asked quietly. What's your decision? I looked up at him. He wants me to save 100 people. Yes. You have 5 years. And if I don't? Then Veronica inherits it all. I exhaled slowly, the weight of every word pressing down. Then I guess, I said, my voice trembling, I'd better get to work. The sun dipped low behind the Manhattan skyline, turning the city's glass towers gold. From the penthouse windows, it looked unreal, like the world had been reborn in light. But I didn't feel rich. I felt haunted. Uncle Rudy's words replayed in my mind over and over. Within 5 years, you must help 100 people escape homelessness. 100 people. I thought of Jeremiah, still sleeping behind the Texaco station, wrapped in layers of cardboard. I thought of the old woman I once shared a sandwich with, of all the faces I'd passed every night, invisible and forgotten. That night, I didn't sleep. I stood at those glass windows until the city turned to diamonds, wondering what my uncle had truly meant by redemption. The next morning, I called Harold. I want to start right away. He sounded both relieved and curious. Then let's talk logistics. Mr. Hartman left access to a trust fund, $12 million in liquid assets for your use. My firm will monitor spending and progress. Fine, I said. But I need someone who knows what living on the streets feels like. Someone real. Jeremiah, he guessed. I smiled faintly. Exactly. 2 days later, I was back in Cedar Falls, standing behind the Texaco station. Jeremiah was sorting cans with his usual precision, every brand in its own little pile, just like always. When he saw me step out of the black Lincoln, he grinned. Michigan Mike, that you? You clean up real nice, brother. Didn't think you'd actually come back. It's all real, Jeremiah, I said. Every word. My uncle left me a fortune, but with a catch. He squinted. Always a catch. What kind? I have to help 100 people get off the streets. Real help. Not just throwing money around. Housing, jobs, medical care. Jeremiah laughed. And you want my help with that? I need your help, I said. You know this world better than anyone. You've kept people alive out here. I want you to be my outreach director. He looked at me like I was crazy. Mike, I haven't had a job in 20 years. You've been doing the job for 20 years, I said. You just weren't getting paid. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. If you're serious? I'm in. But promise me one thing, we do this right. Dignity first. No charity lines. No pity. Deal, I said. The Hartman Foundation began quietly, one small storefront office in Brooklyn. The sign out front was simple. Helping people find home. Our first recruit was a woman named Agnes. She was 73, soft-spoken, and terrified of being alone. She'd lost her apartment after her husband died, then spent 2 years sleeping in bus stations. She didn't need much, just a clean room, some paperwork help, and someone to listen. When we got her approved for senior housing, she cried for an hour straight. I thought my story was over, she whispered. But maybe I've got one more chapter left. By the end of the first 6 months, we'd helped 37 people find housing and stability. Jeremiah ran the outreach with military precision, every name, every story, documented and verified. Harold's firm tracked progress. It wasn't just working. It was changing lives. Then, one afternoon, the past walked through my door. Veronica. She looked thinner, exhausted, her once perfect hair tied in a messy bun. The designer handbag she clutched didn't match her clothes anymore. Michael, she said softly. Can I talk to you? I froze. What do you want, Veronica? Her voice cracked. Clayton left me. For his secretary. The house is gone. I've been staying with friends, but they're done with me. I heard about the inheritance, about what you're doing. So you came here for help. I came here because I was wrong, she said, tears filling her eyes. You were always worth more than any of them. I see that now. For a long time, I said nothing. I looked at her, the woman who'd once laughed as I begged her for a second chance, the one who'd said no one would ever love a broke man. And yet, standing there, all I saw was another lost soul. I can't be with you again, Veronica, I said finally. That part of my life is gone. She nodded, trembling. I know. I'm not asking for that. I just need a job. Something. Anything. I handed her a business card. They're a staffing agency we work with. They'll help you find something honest. But that's all I can offer, a chance. You'll have to rebuild your life yourself. She stared at the card for a long moment, then whispered, thank you. As she turned to leave, I felt no anger. Just peace. The kind that comes when you finally let go of what broke you. 3 months later, my phone rang. The number on the screen made my heart stop. Dad? It was Bethany. I saw an article about your foundation, she said. Mom told me lies about why you disappeared. I should have reached out. I'm sorry. You were a kid, I said gently. You believed the story you were told. Can I come volunteer? She asked. I want to help. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat closed, my chest ached. Yeah, I said finally. I'd like that a lot. That was how I got my daughter back, not through money, not through revenge, but through service. Bethany started volunteering every weekend. She had a gift for talking to people, especially the young runaways who came to us scared and angry. She made them laugh, made them believe they weren't beyond saving. Sometimes, watching her work, I'd think, maybe this is the real inheritance. By the 3rd year, the Hartman Foundation had helped 86 people rebuild their lives. Some found steady jobs. Some reunited with family. Some fell again, back into addiction, loneliness, or despair. Those losses haunted me. But Jeremiah always reminded me. You can't save everyone, brother. Some folks aren't ready to be found yet. Still, we kept going. Every name mattered. Every story meant something. Bethany had grown into the soul of the foundation. At 17, she'd found her purpose among people society had forgotten. The way she spoke to them, without pity, just quiet respect, reminded me of my grandfather, Morrison. He'd been that kind of man. Gentle, patient, never judging. I still remembered sitting on his lap as a kid, listening to him tell stories about helping folks when nobody's watching. Maybe that was the spark that had lit both me and Uncle Rudy in different ways. Then, one morning, Harold called. His tone was serious. Michael, you need to come to New York. We found something in Mr. Hartman's private collection. A journal dated 1969. When I arrived, he handed me a leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed with age. The handwriting was elegant but shaking. The first line hit me like a blow. The man who saved me finally told me his full name today, Morrison Turner. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's my grandfather, I whispered. Harold nodded. Keep reading. The entry continued. He's been like a father to me these past 2 years. Said he has a son in Ohio, named Stephen. I wonder if I'll ever meet his family, or repay this debt. Maybe I already am, just by being alive. I closed the book, my hands trembling. He knew him, I said. He lived with him. My grandfather saved him. Harold turned a few more pages and handed me another piece of paper, older, written in a different hand. That's your grandfather's journal. We found it in the same box. The ink was faint but legible. Told young Rudolph my name today. Don't think he realizes I know who he is. Dorothy's brother, my wife's brother. Family thinks he died in the war. Won't tell them. He's good, just lost. I'll help him find his way. I couldn't breathe. My grandfather had known all along. He'd known the broken man he was sheltering was his wife's brother, the same uncle who'd later test me from beyond the grave. 2 men from 2 generations, tied by one silent act of compassion. He never said a word, I murmured. He just helped him, because that's who he was. Harold nodded. Your uncle found out later. He never forgot it. He told me once that he owed his entire life to a man named Morrison, and that someday, he'd repay that debt. That night, I returned to the penthouse. I stood by those massive windows again, looking out at the glowing veins of the city. I finally understood what Uncle Rudy had meant. This wasn't a test. It was a circle closing. My grandfather had saved his brother-in-law in secret. His brother-in-law had saved me through this inheritance. And now it was my turn to pass that mercy forward. By the end of year 5, the Hartman Foundation had officially helped 103 people escape homelessness. Jeremiah ran outreach programs across 3 states. Bethany had been accepted into a social work program at Columbia. We'd built partnerships with hospitals, employers, and rehab centers. The money was working exactly the way Uncle Rudy had hoped, not as charity, but as redemption turned outward. But the last person we helped? That one stayed with me forever. His name was Frank. A Vietnam veteran in his 70s. When I first met him, he was sitting on a park bench, staring at a photo of a young woman in his shaking hands. "My daughter," he said quietly. "Haven't seen her in 30 years. He refused help at first. He said he didn't deserve it. Said he'd wasted his life. But something about him reminded me of Jeremiah, proud, broken, and still clinging to hope. So, I didn't give up. I found his daughter. She lived in Vermont. When she came to the shelter and saw him for the first time, she cried so hard she could barely stand. Frank just whispered, "Didn't think I'd get a second chance." Watching them embrace, I realized that was the 100th story. The circle was complete. 1 week later, Harold called me to the penthouse. "Mr. Turner," he said, smiling for the first time in all these years, "you fulfilled the condition. Every case verified. Mr. Hartman's entire fortune is now legally yours." I looked out at the city below, all those lights, all those lives, and felt something shift inside me. "No," I said quietly. "It's not mine. It never really was. It belongs to them, to every person who just needed someone to see them." Harold tilted his head. "You've become the man Mr. Hartman hoped you'd be. Maybe. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't done yet." After Harold left that day, I stayed alone in the penthouse for a long time. The same space where Uncle Rudy had died, surrounded by treasures, but alone, now felt alive again. I walked through the study and noticed a small wooden box on the bookshelf. Inside was a photograph, a faded one of my grandfather's funeral. In the back corner of the photo, standing apart from the rest of the mourners, was a man in a dark suit. Younger, slimmer, but unmistakable. Uncle Rudy. He'd come to say goodbye. On the back of the photo, written in his handwriting, were the words, "Morrison Turner, 1910 to 1985. You saved me without asking for anything. I promise I'll pay it forward." And he had. Through me. Through every life we touched. I realized then that the inheritance had never really been about money, it was about continuity. A chain of kindness, passed from one life to another, invisible but unbreakable. The Hartman Foundation grew in ways I never could have imagined. We expanded to 6 states, partnering with veterans organizations, youth centers, and rehab clinics. Jeremiah, once a man forgotten by the world, became a respected speaker, invited to conferences to talk about dignity and compassion. When he stepped up to a podium in a clean suit, his gravelly voice echoing through auditoriums, he always began the same way. "I'm not a social worker. I'm not a saint. I'm just a man who knows what it's like to be invisible." People listened, because they knew he meant it. Bethany went to college, majoring in social work. She told me she wanted to dedicate her life to helping kids who felt abandoned. Watching her lead her first outreach event at 19, I realized she'd inherited something far more valuable than wealth. She'd inherited purpose. Sometimes, late at night, I'd walk the streets of the city, the same streets where I once begged for scraps, and watch the people we'd helped. A man closing up the diner he now managed. A woman pushing her granddaughter on a swing in the park. A veteran sleeping under a roof instead of a bridge. Every one of them, a spark of proof that kindness doesn't vanish. It just travels, from one heart to another. That's what Uncle Rudy had meant. That's what my grandfather had lived. It wasn't charity. It was connection. And the real inheritance wasn't the $47 million. It was the understanding that we are all, every single one of us, just one act of compassion away from changing someone's entire story. I never sold the penthouse. I kept it, not as a monument to wealth, but as the foundation's headquarters, the place where every new plan began. We hung a plaque in the lobby. Dedicated to Morrison and Rudolph, proof that kindness echoes across generations. Whenever new volunteers asked me what inspired it all, I told them the truth. It started behind a dumpster. With a stranger who offered me a second chance. Years later, during a speech at one of our charity events, I closed with the same words every time. If you pass someone on the street, don't look away. That could have been me. It could be any of us. We're all just one moment from needing help, and one choice from giving it. The audience always went quiet. Because deep down, they understood. As I stand by those massive windows now, looking over the city that once broke me, I can almost hear my grandfather's voice again, warm, steady, full of quiet wisdom. Help when no one's watching, Michael. That's when it matters. And Uncle Rudy's, layered right behind it. Salvation shouldn't be free. It should be earned, through grace. Maybe they were both right. Because I didn't just inherit a fortune. I inherited a mission. And I finally understood. The real wealth wasn't what was written in a will, it was what you leave in people's hearts. If this story touched your heart, if it made you look differently at the people we often pass without seeing, please like this video and share it. Because change starts small. It starts with empathy. Comment below. Have you ever experienced unexpected kindness? A moment when someone helped you when you least expected it? And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us we're all part of the same human story, connected by compassion and bound by hope.